Hey guys and girls, welcome back to another beautiful video on this beautiful channel, on this beautiful day. How you doing? Hope you're doing great. I love all of you. Thanks for all the support. You're the best. All of you are the best. Alright, and I'm gonna make you even more bestest because we're gonna talk about this amazing class that we're gonna be making today. And just a little short video because this isn't a really hard class to make. It's something that's really useful, but it's not that hard. And you can kind of tweak it and customize it a whole bunch. But the shader class was a little longer because, you know, obviously there's a lot of code going in there. But let's see. So we're going to make a new file. Sorry about that. A new file. We're going to call it texture. Just say texture.h. And we're going to add that just like we did with the shader class. Now I'm going to copy a bunch of shit from Shader's own includes and stuff. So I'm going to put that in here. But we're not going to use all of this. We're not going to use all the vex and stuff like that. We don't need all of this. GLM. We just need. We do need iostream. We probably need fstream. Or we don't need fstream. Probably we're going to keep string just in case. And then we're going to make the class. Class texture. And then we're going to go ahead and do this. Let me just draw this out real quick. Why is this not working right now? That's why. Alright, there we go. So make the class private and then public as usual. Alright. The private part is gonna have a GLU int texture, I guess. Let's see a good name. Well, whatever, we'll just call it texture for now. And then you want a int height, int width. So the width and the height, I always keep width before. I don't know why I did that, but there you go. So that's what you want. Then you want to make a texture constructor and a texture destructor as well. And you want to say in here, you want to say gl delete textures. This texture. There you go. I want to call it this ID because ID makes more sense in OpenGL because it's an ID to a texture in the background. So it's an ID. And I'm going to delete it. And then we're going to say, what's the problem here? We need GL texture 2D. Just like that. And that is a GL. Oh no, one texture, and then the reference to the ID. There you go. So GL delete texture 1, this ID. And now I'm gonna copy a bunch of stuff from here because I'm lazy. So we're just gonna copy all of this stuff from texture 0, and we're gonna go all the way down, and we're gonna see GL active texture 0 bind texture 2D 0. All right, that's cool. So we're just gonna. I'm just gonna. Oh no! What did I do now? What the hell? Wait, just give me a second here. Let me just take all of this again from texture 1 this time. Doesn't really matter. Go into texture. I'm just gonna keep all the code here. Don't worry too much. We're gonna fix all of this stuff. All right. So in the constructor, let's start off from the beginning. We need soil as well. So let me just go up here into in libs. Let me grab soil really quick and put it in texture here. And then we're going to remove this. We're going to say this width and height. Alright, so we don't need that. This width, this height. So we have the width and the height. And then the enum here, we're going to change that. We need the file name as well. So const char file name. And then this is a, let's see, soil load RGB. It's an unnamed enum. Alright, whatever. We'll keep it simple for now. So we'll just do this and we'll say file name right here. This is the texture, so I'm gonna gen my own texture, this ID, just change that, copy this, and then this is the GL enum, so I'll say GL enum type, just like that, and that's gonna be the type, and we're just gonna put that everywhere. To the fix all this, you can kind of play around with that as well. This with this height, and then you have all this stuff here. Type, generate bitmap image, like that. Error, texture. So I know I'm going a little fast here maybe, but then we want to do file name here just to print that out. So let me just explain what happened. Obviously we copied all the code from there. If you've read it, you should probably understand how that works. I removed the top stuff, I load the image, I generate the texture into our ID. The width and the height is from the loaded image is put into these private members here. I check if image is loaded correctly. If there's data in image, I will create the GL image in GL, in the OpenGL backend thingy, and I'll create that, and then I'll generate a bitmap for it. Otherwise, I'll say error, I couldn't load this file, and then we'll say GL active texture 0, GL bind texture type 0, and I'll free the image data from soil. So that's how we load a texture. Alright, that's how you load a texture. And you could create empty ones. You could reset. This is a good thing since it's a really short video. I want to tell you guys how to do that. Let me just see. Let me think a little bit. So gluint get ID, and then we'll say const, and then we'll just say return this ID. I'll probably make this inline as well. Inline, just return the ID, the texture. Then we can create a function void bind, gluint texture unit, and then glenum type, and then we'll do gl bind texture type this ID, so bind the texture right there, and then we'll say gl active texture gl texture 0 plus texture unit. So there we go. So the way this works is, if we want to set it to texture unit 0, this will be 0, so we'll do plus 0, it will still be 0 in here, right? If we want to activate 1, we'll do a 1 here. It will say 0 plus 1 is 1. So this is how you kind of on the fly dynamically choose which texture unit to use. And then you bind the texture with the type that we specify and the ID. So that's probably all you want. Let's see, before drawing, let's just check it out. Before our draw call, we say right here somewhere, right down here somewhere, gl active texture, and then we bind the texture, and then we draw stuff. So that's basically the texture class. Now we're gonna try to see if all this works. We will also want a void unbind, and then we're gonna just say gl active texture, and then gl bind texture GL enum type, because we bound our texture to a type and we want to unbind it from that type. So we're just going to say type 0, like that. So we unbind the texture. There we go. So that's basically the texture class for you right there. Let me just open these up so you can see. We create the texture from a file, check if it works or not, and then we can manipulate it and we can use stuff from it. So let me just run this program. Let me see if everything works. Everything should work without a problem. Alright, so I have my little kitty cat. My little kitty cat, rotation, all that shit. Excuse me. And then we're just gonna try to create some textures here. So where's our texture? Let's include texture from libs here. Include texture.h, and then we go. I'm just gonna run it, so see if the include works fine. Yep, it worked really well. There we go. So now what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna go up to where we have textures. I guess it's down here. Yeah, here's texture 0. So let's start with texture 0. So images pusheen.png. Under here, I'm just gonna create a texture 0 from this beautiful thing right here, and I'm gonna give it a GL texture 2D. So it's gonna load that texture for me right there, and without removing anything, I'm just gonna go down and I'm gonna go to where I bind texture 0 right here. Instead of doing that, I'm gonna do texture 0 dot, obviously it's a double thing here because I have texture 0 here as well. Texture, let's just say texture underscore 0, just to test it out, So texture underscore 0 dot bind to texture unit 0 GL texture 2D, like that. So I'm binding the texture and to texture unit 0, and we have our texture right there. Now if I do the same thing, if I just remove all this stuff up here, go back, remove everything up here up until this point, and then we remove everything with images container, remove all of this, then we'll say texture 1, and then images container.png, and then GL texture 2D, like that. Also texture 0 there, and then remove that, and then remove this texture 1 dot bind at position 1 GL texture 2D. Now we'll play around with this a little more later on, probably, because you can do a lot more. As you can see, we can ask the user to specify a bunch of stuff to customize this even more, like the load format, the generation of bitmap, if you want that or not. You can choose whether or not you want an empty texture without loading it from a file name, just creating one for like shadow maps and stuff that we'll talk about later. You can make a bunch of more of these to get all the types. You can save the type and the texture unit here instead, probably, just to, yeah, kind of just to keep track of where it was set and where it wasn't set. For example, unsigned int type, and then you can probably use GL int. Let's see, GL int for the texture unit, GL int texture unit, like that. And then you can specify the type and GL int texture unit. Now I use underscore sometimes for my local variables and parameters, and I use this format for what do you call it, like real variables. So type and texture unit. So what you can do up here, you can say this type equals type, this texture unit equals texture unit. So there you go. So now we have the type and we have the texture unit here. So instead of specifying this every time, we could just say this texture unit and then this type, so we don't play around with this too much, right? So we don't make any errors, and that way we should be fine. Obviously you can use type here, you don't need to use this type, and you're good. So that should work. I'm just going to main again. Let me bind, what was it, 0, the file name, type, texture unit. So this is for binding it at whatever position it was, doesn't really matter. There you go. And then let's go up. Let's say 0, texture unit 1, because texture unit was at the end. Oh, whoops. Okay, whatever, it's all good. So there you go. Now we have container and this thingy here. Let's just load this, see if it works. Yep, we still have our kitty cat. And if we say texture unit 1.bind, go into the fragment here. Let's see, texture unit vs texture texture 1 right now should give us the container image. Alright, so both our textures are working. They're all coming into the shader. Their thingies being sent in. Their where is it? We can change this as well. They're uniform. Set map 4 core program texture 1 bind core program use set map 4. Oh, here's the texture. Yeah, here's the texture unit. So to 0.0 texture unit 1, we're sending this in. Okay. Alright. So that's good. Where's our texture? Here. So what we can do, we can make one more function here. We can do a gl int get texture unit const, and we'll just return this texture unit like that, inline, and then we'll go back to main, and then we'll just in case, just so we don't get any weird errors, what you should do is when you send them into the update here, what you could do, you could do this, no, not this, texture 0 dot get texture unit, because it could be different, right? And then texture 1 dot get texture unit, and boom, should be fine. Perfect. Perfect. So there you go, guys and girls. We're fine. That's the texture class for you to make it a little better. Sorry, this is so small. To make it a little easier for you in life. Alright? So keep working on this. Please just go check it out. Try to fiddle with this. See if you can make it even more customizable with stuff. And yeah, you could make a function called load from file if you want to change the texture at any point. Load another file into the same texture instead of making a new one. You could do that, obviously. But before we end, obviously, I just want to do one thing. I want to do this. I just want to show you something. So when you make a function load from file, remember always to delete the old data before you do anything. So you can say if this ID and then gl delete textures 1 this ID, and then you want to just make sure that happens. And let's see, the ID, what do we need to delete? The ID, we have deleted everything else. So yeah, so you just delete itself if it already exists. So just to make sure you don't kind of fill the memory with a bunch of random shit that you don't need. So just remember that when you make a load from file function. Or do you want me to make a load from file function? You probably do. You probably do. Let me just do that. Load from file. Let me just show you how that is. So it would be the same type of thing, just that we take file name, and all you need to do is just create that, and then you go into texture, you copy everything that you have in here, you go in here and you paste it in. Alright, and you don't need this because this is already set. Then you do that, whatever I wrote up there, this ID, if it has been created, GL delete textures 1 this ID. There you go. So we deleted it, it's off, it's gone. Then we're just gonna create the image again from the file name, and we're gonna generate the texture again, generate all this stuff again. We're just gonna put this in front of all of these just so we know they're members, which you don't really have to in this case, but you could. There you go. And we're just gonna generate it again. Error texture load from file, texture loading failed, file name, bind texture, this type, delete the image, set active texture 0, all that stuff, everything that you want to do, and then you'll be fine. So that's basically a load from file function. So this is good. This is pretty good texture class right now, and you can make a bunch of more stuff in here, like I said. So yeah, I hope you learned something, and I hope you keep working hard. Please take care, and I'll see you guys and girls in the next one. All right, bye bye.